Today's episode of the GoldCast is sponsored by winning. Because winning feels good. And it's good for everyone. It's healthy for us. It's healthy for the Niners. It's healthy for the faithful. It's healthy for the GoldCast Nation. Wouldn't you agree, Ray?
I would agree 110%. I would agree 15-14.
I would agree 15-14 too. So let's get more winning at a game near you. Now, Raymond, before we get started, why don't you let them know where they can find us?
You can like us at facebook.com/thegoldcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at @thegoldcast_. You can also subscribe to us via iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, all under the same moniker of the GoldCast, including Instagram at the GoldCast. Follow, subscribe, leave reviews, leave comments. It all helps spread the word if you like what you hear. Give us constructive feedback if you want to hear something different or hear something better. But scratch that last part, because there is nothing better.
There is nothing better, Ray. All right, here we go. The debut, the long-awaited debut of Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G! It's here. We're going to talk about it after the intro. Let's get busy. GoldCast.
San Francisco, are you ready? This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis I, baby.
Boom! Here we are. Welcome to the GoldCast. You're here, and like us, you're a San Francisco homer. 7 championship appearances in 7 years. Giants dynasty. On the verge of a Warriors dynasty. But today it's all about one team and one quarterback. San Francisco 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. Welcome to the GoldCast. Raymond, final score in Chicago, 15-14. We see the long-awaited debut of Jimmy Garoppolo. And first of all, let me break it down for you like this, and then I want to hear you. I was like a kid at Christmas this whole weekend leading into this. You know, we had our reservations. We talked about it last week. We had our reservations about this. But then it was announced that on Wednesday, or Tuesday. They said it was going to be announced Wednesday. It was announced on Tuesday that they were going forward with Jimmy G, and they were going to do it. So, like any 49er faithful, I just got pumped and got into it and said, let's make it happen. Let's go. Let's do this. So this morning, I woke up at like 9 a.m., bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like ready to go. I was like a kid at Christmas. So I'm like, let's go. Got dressed, got all my gear on. My wife and I, we went down to the parlor here in Los Angeles, watched the game, and it was awesome. I still concerned about our inabilities to turn all of those red zone, all those times in the red zone into touchdowns, but the confidence, the poise, the accuracy, seeing downfield, always hitting a receiver that was open and beyond 10 yards. That was fantastic, and something we hadn't seen, something we complained a lot about with Brian Hoyer, especially in the first half of the season. You had some excellent breakdowns about it, but in general, I just saw a poise and a confidence and a calm and a level of accuracy that I haven't seen from Alex Smith to now. I haven't seen a single quarterback that had that level. And for one game and one intro, I was very impressed. Raymond, but you are the greatest analyst in the game. So why don't you break down your feelings after the announcement and then going into this game and then what you saw?
Well, C.J. Beathard was injured, so that's the main reason why he's in there. It wasn't like a executive decision to, do something to shake up the team. C.J. Beathard got injured. He had an MRI on Monday. They even pulled up a quarterback from the practice squad because he couldn't practice. So by default, Jimmy G gets his shot. I thought if we lost, he would get his shot anyways. Turns out that injury has kind of propelled him into this position, which was inevitable. So I'm fine. I was fine with it. It actually made a little bit more sense because now I feel a little bit better about CJ because I know he was doing good and working his ass off, and sometimes it's hard to see a guy to just get benched, not necessarily for doing anything particularly wrong, but just because, you know, circumstances have forced him to the bench because an investment was made for a better player. And so I was happy with the way it turned out because this makes more logical sense to me. And I feel like, you know, this is something that CJ Beathard is not going to hurt his confidence. It's not going to mess with his progress because this was, you know, the situation he's in is as a result of, you know, the nature of the game. So that part, that's how I felt about the announcement. But once we actually got to the field and I got to see him, the main thing that really stood out to me is actually a few things, and I'll get to it. So I'll start with the couple of things, and I'll end with the main thing that really stood out to me. So number one, very calm in the pocket, much like CJ Beathard. The only difference is CJ's a rookie. Jimmy G is on his 4th year. Super calm in the pocket, doesn't seem to be bothered by the rush, by pressure at all, can flush to his right, can flush to his left, can step up. You know, he is very polished in his pocket awareness, you know, knows exactly what's coming from what side. You know, there was that one play when he kind of held onto the ball too long, and then like it was a little odd. I was like, wow, it seemed like he held it on too long. I was like, why didn't he just throw it away? And he took that really deep sack. He's only sacked twice today, so not a whole lot of pressure that was allowed. I mean, there was breakdowns in the pocket, but he always found ways to keep the play going. He keeps his eyes downfield. Another thing that I saw that really stood out from Jimmy G. And also goes through his progressions. There was lots of times where the coverage was there. This is a passing defense that's 12th in the NFL. You know, they're middle of the road, you know what I mean? So they're not terrible, but they're not great either. So they're gonna bend, but they're not gonna break all the time. And even though you might be able to say that when you look at the score sheets showing that we were 5 for 5 on field goals, didn't get any touchdowns, a lot of those red zones were self-inflicted more so than the Bears defense not bending. Or I'm sorry, not breaking. So, but going back to Jimmy G, the main thing that really stood out to me was accuracy. His ball location was absolutely impeccable. His third down conversion, for a guy that's only been studying the playbook for a little over a month, 5 weeks, and has just now gotten his first week of first team reps in preparation for this game, he seemed to be throwing to Trent Taylor and Marquise Goodwin as if they've been doing it all season. It was like a, you know, hand in a glove type of fit. And that's what I thought was so impressive. I was like, wow, his ability to just connect with receivers and really kind of put the ball where it's supposed to be based on the designed route. That to me was, I mean, he just knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And I was just like, whoa, big difference between somebody who's been studying one of the best passers in the NFL and Tom Brady and has had 4 years to do so and now getting his first shot to kind of showcase what he's learned versus, you know, CJ Beathard, a first-year rookie coming out of Iowa. So a very stark difference. Completed 70% of his passes. You know, CJ and Brian Hoyer were hovering around the 50s. So it's hit and miss, and some of that was obviously drop passes. No drop passes today. No drop, with the exception of Carlos Hyde. No designated receiver dropped a pass today. So that was also a huge thing today. So Marquise Goodwin's had his best game, his career day, actually, most receptions. Trent Taylor was huge on third down conversions. That was the other thing. Third down conversions. We were 10 for 18, 55%. That's better than we've done all season long to convert 10 third downs. I mean, how many times? 4 of them was to Trent Taylor alone. So the fact that he was able to really convert and keep drives going against a defense that's 12th in the NFL, that's hovering around top 10, that's pretty darn impressive, you know, because this is Vic Fangio. Even though he doesn't have the same group that he had with us in San Francisco, he does know defense, and he is a good defender. And he doesn't like to blitz a lot, which means he likes to have extra men out there in the backfield in double coverage and free safeties and strong safeties roaming around to give extra coverage, to force the quarterback to give his defenders extra time to get a sack, coverage sack, and to kind of challenge the quarterback to, hey, if you want to pass against us, you better thread that ball, or your guy better have, you know, lightning feet to beat our guys, because that's kind of the game that Vic Fangio plays. He doesn't like to blitz. He likes to depend on his rushers to do their job, and also drop extra men into coverage to make passing, because passing is harder than running. So I understand the concept of Vic Fangio's scheme. And Jimmy Garoppolo made them pay, nearly 300 yards. I know he had the pick that was more like a strip, but, and he will get touchdowns. That's obviously a given. It was a self-inflicting wounds that really prevented Jimmy from getting those opportunities for the most part. So, as long as that can get cleaned up by next week, we'll have a good shot. And, I'll obviously get into next week as we get down to the preview. But Jimmy G, man, just a huge difference. I mean, it's hard not to be excited as a 49er fan after watching that performance today. Would you not agree?
I was so pumped after. I thought he completely lived up to the hype. I was like, damn, this guy is good. This guy's really, really good. I'll tell you who's a great barometer is my wife. My wife knows nothing about football, okay? She knows nothing at all about football. And so she sat there, she watched the whole game with me, the whole beginning and end. She knew I was really excited, so she was all decked out in her Niner gear. She was at the sports bar with me, and she watched every play. And I think this is really interesting. Someone who's seen, she sat through many games with me. She said, man, she's like, that guy's really accurate. And I was like, yeah. She goes, I feel like most of the time when I watch 49er quarterbacks, they're like scrambling in the background and they make these crazy desperation plays while they're like getting hit. And she's like, he didn't do that at all. He just seems so calm back there. He's really accurate. And I thought that was really telling as someone who like sees no football, like who understands very little about football, like just those basic impulses and the difference between the two quarterbacks. Like she's like, I kind of always see this guy scrambling and this guy's not, and like this guy's just hitting all these plays. I'm with you. The third down conversion, and it was like Tom Brady. He knew, he was like, I just have to get right there. If I just hit this one receiver, he's just beyond the 10-yard line, and boom, we've got 4 more downs. And that was, to me, Tom Brady style.
He treated Trent Taylor like Julian Edelman. That's exactly how he treated Trent Taylor. And Trent Taylor obviously fits the role very well, and he even has similar size, to Julian Edelman. And they were kind of a match made in heaven all day today. Yes,
they were. And same with Marquise Goodwin. You know that they were 14 for 14. He was 14 for 14 when with those two guys. His accuracy, and he was just threading the ball right between the defenders, exactly where just the receivers could get it. Even those 2 big passes that were pushed out of bounds, he had the one in the corner for the touchdown, and that was to, who was that to, Ray? Was that to Selleck? Do you remember? You know the play I'm talking about?
No, I do know the one pass that was really great, that I'd really like to see happen again, was the perfect look. Even though it was a little bit of a wobbly throw, he got flooded out of the pocket to his right, Jimmy G, and then he's looking downfield. They're in the red zone, and then he throws on the run to the only spot that George Kittle could jump up and get the ball. The only problem was that he caught the ball and then landed out of bounds. But other than that, A, it was a good catch, but B, it was an amazing throw. Even though it was a little bit of wobbly, it didn't have the nice spiral that most of his throws have. But I thought that was amazing too. I was like, wow. I was like, his ability, that was on the run out of the pocket, and it wasn't even a perfect I guess the torque in the ball wasn't very perfect, but the placement of the ball was absolutely perfect. I was like, that is amazing. I was like, this guy's really good.
Yes. Now, no, that's what I'm talking about. There was 2 different plays that happened, once in the end zone, and then I think you're talking about the other one is that Kittle play. Both were just amazing, and both those passes were great. Those were great. And he put the ball exactly where it needed to be. He knew exactly who to go to make sure that we got another set of downs. His third down conversion rate was fantastic. And it was, and this is the 2 key words of the day. The 2 key words that I think every 49er fan leaves with is accuracy and just calm. He was so calm. And I've heard this word. I've read it. I've read 3 or 4 different articles since the game. You've said it. I've said it. It's just a word I keep thinking. He was just so calm. Nothing rattled him. And you were, like you're saying, flush to the right, flush to the left, get out of the pocket, boom, dink, 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 dink. I just haven't seen anyone do that. In the last 10 years, I haven't seen a single quarterback do that. I have not seen that happen. From Alex Smith to now, I haven't seen a single quarterback do what he did today. And this is what gets me pumped. You have Jimmy Garoppolo, who has spent 3 years behind the best quarterback of the modern era, under the tutelage of the best coach of the modern era. He's just been there for 3 years. Now he's come to San Francisco and has joined forces with Kyle Shanahan, who many believe to be one of the most progressive and if not the top offensive mind in football today. And now they're together. Just saying those words and thinking about that implication to me gets me so pumped about the future of where this team could go and who they can be. Because they could be the Belichick and Brady of tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying they're gonna be. I'm not getting all hot takey and like getting like overly faithful and thinking that the whole world is gonna be different and this is gonna be the greatest run of all time. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that the ceiling for these two guys is very, very high. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, and next week next week will be a little bit, we're not going to be playing a really formidable team. Although offensively, they're not bad in certain areas. But defensively, it'll be pretty similar to what they faced today.
Well, it's going to be a great test. It's going to be a really great test.
But that's the thing, though. But it's the right. Those are exactly the results that I want to see. Because here's the thing. A rookie quarterback will struggle against a middle-of-the-road defense, whereas a good quarterback should dominate a middle-of-the-road defense. An above-average quarterback, which Jimmy G appears to be, even in his short sampling, even in New England, going all the way back to New England and San Francisco, even in the short samplings we've seen, he appears to be very, very competent and has a extremely tight skill set that's polished. It's polished. We can see what happens when a quarterback sits for several years learning under a good quarterback. They typically do very well. We saw that with Aaron Rodgers under Brett Favre. We saw that with Steve Young under Joe Montana. And now it looks like we're kind of starting to see flashes of that with Jimmy Garoppolo, who was under Tom Brady. That's typically a good recipe for success. You're learning how to be the best by watching and talking to and learning from the best. I mean, it's pretty sound, and it looks like it's paying off on film because he beat a middle of the road defense, a top 15 pass defense that actually stuffed us in the run. Carlos Hyde had 17 attempts for 54 yards. Matt Breida was 12 for 45. So combined, they grinded out 90 plus yards. Even Jimmy G had a couple of runs. But the point is that we didn't necessarily have a dominant run game. I know that Carlos Hyde had that big 18-yard run, but that was later in the game because we were winning the time of possession battle. So I knew that sooner or later we would just have to keep pounding the football because sooner or later they would break down in the second and third levels because they were going to get gas. We kept forcing 3 and outs while our offense kept sustaining long drives and converting on third down. That's what teams had been doing to us prior to today's game. Is we could not sustain drives because we just didn't have a quarterback who could really get those conversions that we needed. And we had self-inflicting wounds, and we kind of avoided some of those costly things. We didn't avoid them in the red zone, but we did avoid them, outside of that for the most part. So, because think about it, we had how many penalties did we have today? I believe we had.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you right now. We had.
We had eight penalties, right? So we had 8 penalties for 53 yards, but 5 of those were in the red zone. So that's what I mean when I said for the most part they were in the red zone. The other 3 were in other parts of the game, but most of our penalties came when we got into the red zone. Holding calls, pass interference, block in the back, ineligible man downfield. Those are the types of things that just drive killers. It wasn't that the defense was doing great. It's just we screwed up, we botched the play. So that's all going to get cleaned up, I feel. for the most part. We also had Trent Brown back on the right side to protect Jimmy G's front side, and then we had Joe Staley obviously protecting his backside. So that obviously was huge too. So a better pass protection today. Everyone kind of seemed to step up a little bit. Not to say that they weren't putting that effort forth with C.J. Beathard and Brian Hoyer, but I think people understand the implications of what Jimmy G brings to the table, and as a result, that kind of helps motivate them to kind of step up their game, because this only works. It only works when all 11 men are doing their job, regardless of how good Jimmy G does. He still needs the other 10 men to do their job too. So and that was what we saw for the most part today. So I thought it was great, and it's hard not to be excited about this. I'm very curious to hear what Greg Papa says tomorrow on 95.7 The Game, because he's even though he's partial to the Raiders for obvious reasons, he is still very, very kind to the 49ers and very, very appreciative of good passers. And I think it's hard to deny the job that Jimmy G showcased today.
It isn't, and your excitement makes me excited because, like I said, you're just the greatest fan analyst in the game to me. So if you're pumped and you're seeing what I'm seeing, then I think it's a good thing. Let's talk about a little bit about the unsung hero of the team this evening was, I thought, the defense. The defense only allowed one touchdown the entire game. That was huge. They really stepped it up. Special teams, they really screwed it up. They almost cost us the entire game. But the defense, I thought the defense made a fantastic showing today. What did you think about the defense? I mean, they literally completely shut down Chicago for basically 3 straight quarters after that one touchdown.
Well, we stuffed their run, which was great, which means that we forced them to be a one-sided team. So we're forcing a rookie, now the tables are turned, where we have a competent veteran quarterback, and they have to, and we're going to, we basically force the Bears to say, hey, beat us in the air with your rookie if you want to win this game. And they couldn't do it. I know he was sacked twice. We were sacked twice, but the pressure was there. The running game was not there. Mitchell Trubisky still has a long way to go, obviously. And, that's why he was 12 for 15. I mean, that's efficiency in terms of completion percentage, but only for 102 yards, and he had the one touchdown. Yeah, I get it. I get that part. But other than that, very, very ineffective. And on the running side of it, they were completely shut down. Trubisky had the second most yards of the running attack with 19. Their top running back, Howard, he only had 38 for the day. And Cohen, their speedster on special teams, he had 5 yards. That was it. These guys barely cracked 50. So, when you do that and force a team like that with a rookie quarterback to be one-sided, you're going to give yourself an advantage, and you're going to force a lot of 3 and outs. And so I basically I saw it today. I saw the tables get turned. What had been happening to us all year finally happened to another team, and we were able to capitalize on it, even though we were playing from behind the whole time. We were playing from behind the entire game, but I just kept saying, okay, I was like, they keep getting 3 and outs, though, on the Bears side, which means sooner or later that defense is going to bend and allow us to catch up, which they did because we sustained drives throughout the entire game and were able to put up enough field goals and keep them off the scoreboard offensively to the point where our field goals ended up being enough to win the game. So that was huge.
Let's talk about that for a second, too. Robbie Gould, we got him from the Chicago Bears. I really can't think of a better – I don't know if I've ever seen a better revenge game for a kicker going back into the team that let him go. He went in there and literally single-handedly scored every point for us and then did the winning field goal to end the game.
Yeah, he was huge. I mean – and I know that he was very bitter. He was very bitter about leaving Chicago because he had been there for over a decade. His family's there. So I understand where he was coming from. I think he kind of got blindsided by the leaving the team. So, I mean, it was kind of a nice little revenge game for him. I mean, it's not, I guess he took it a little bit personal, but who cares? It was to our advantage, at their expense. So it was a cool little mini story, and it was kind of poetic the way it panned out, that we couldn't seem to, buy ourselves a touchdown. So we kind of put it in the hands of the person that, the team we were playing gave up.
Yeah, and it was great. It was great to see. I thought that was a nice little story for Robbie Gould. The defense played awesome. Marquise Goodwin, let's talk a little bit about him. He looked amazing today. Where Jimmy Garoppolo, where he put the ball for him and what he was able to do, I've never seen Marquise Goodwin play like that. I mean, he hasn't really had the opportunity. I mean, think about, like you said, think about all the drop balls he's had. But, I mean, Jimmy G made him look like a god out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here's the thing, though. So I noticed that the play calling changed with Jimmy Garoppolo in there. I can't necessarily get too specific with it, but the point was I noticed that our third down conversion play calls were slightly different from some of the ones we were calling with CJ Beathard. And I'm going to keep it general here and broad just for the sake of our audience. But the reason why it was like that and why I noticed the change is because I think that Kyle Shanahan understands that Jimmy Garoppolo adds another layer of dynamic play to the offense, where the point is he can start to open up the playbook a little bit more, take a little bit more risky plays, take a little bit more aggressive play calling, because he has now a quarterback who's competent enough to make those plays happen. Whereas before we didn't, so we kind of stuck to bread and butter, or really tried to get plays that play to the strength of who our quarterback was. And Brian Hoyer and CJ Beathard. But Jimmy G just kind of adds another layer. And as a result, I kind of saw the playbook change a little bit today. And obviously that's going to change naturally because he doesn't know everything that the previous two quarterbacks knew, because they knew the entire playbook. Whereas Jimmy G probably still doesn't have the whole thing memorized in terms of the terminology. The plays he's obviously familiar with. If he knows, it's just the name of it that's tough. Like, hey, if you give out a half a dozen named play, he might not remember exactly what that means, but if you were to actually explain what the routes are and stuff, he would know all that stuff by the back of his hand. It's just a terminology that's different. At least that's what Jeff Garcia said when he was talking about the difference. It is more complex, but it's more complex in a terminology versus what's actually happening in the play, where that's more obviously quintessential NFL. So, it's great. It was great to see that, because I'm like, oh crap. I was like, this means that Kyle Shanahan's going to start to add more wrinkles into the playbook as we progress, from the remainder of this season into next year. I was like, and that's going to make things even more. It's going to make things even better for the offense. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo distributed the football to 8 different players today. That's crazy. I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's a sign of a very good quarterback who, if his first read is unavailable, has the ability to find his other reads in time before the pass rush gets to him.
So exciting. That's another thing. Well, let's talk about that for a second. So let's go back to the playbook. This is great. When is the last time we've been able to sit down on the GoldCast and just talk about all the fun, awesome things we saw the 49ers do? It's been so long, right?
It's usually like a handful, like, oh, there was a couple good plays that were good, and hopefully they can build on that. And whereas today we kind of had 4 quarters of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, though, Ray. So let's talk again about potential. Think about this. He's only working on 1 month of time with the playbook. We're still working with a limited set. We're still working, even though you're right. Probably what Shanahan's doing is he's kind of going left and right and up and down, and he's going other places he can't go with anyone else. Let's just pretend. Let's just say Beathard knows 50 plays, right? Garoppolo, he probably knows about 25 plays. I'm just inventing numbers, but I'm just saying the relative difference is that he is working with a much smaller set of plays. Now, they're obviously more dynamic and cater to the larger strengths that he has. But can you imagine? This is when I said we're going to talk about potential. Can you imagine when he knows the entire playbook, what he's going to be and what he's going to be able to do? That's going to be crazy. I
want to see him start to let it rip in those deep bombs that CJ and Brian Hoyer were doing. I want to see some of those plays start to open up. So, I mean, we did see attempts to that. There was, the nice mid-range throw to George Kittle out of bounds. There was the deep pass, 33-yarder to Trent Taylor on the third down conversion. There was, a couple of short intermediate passes to Marquise Goodwin. So, they do exist. Marquise Goodwin, caught the 20-yarder. Garrett Sellett had that 22-yarder. Kyle Juszczyk had the 16-yarder. So those are good intermediate throws. But I want to see like the 40 and 50-yarders. I want to start to see those guys. That's going to be pretty exciting when he starts to really let it rip.
I agree, man. The potential's there. GoldCast Nation, 49er faithful, let us all for just a moment bask in the glory of a good win. Wasn't perfect, but it was a great start. And Jimmy Garoppolo, he came out today and he was the truth. And I'm really excited. And I think that we have the coaching in place to hone this, and he has the experience. It's, like with Cap and Harbaugh, we were never big fans on the GoldCast of Greg Roman. We were always very critical of Greg Roman. And Cap had the athleticism, but it started to become pretty obvious very quickly that there was some of the basic mechanics that the IQ wasn't always at the same level as the talent. And this isn't a bash Kaepernick. We love Kaepernick on the GoldCast, and we appreciate everything he ever did for this team. But I'm just talking about the differences between them. Cap didn't have this kind of vision downfield. Cap struggled with his checkdowns. Cap struggled with going through his reads. But he had raw physical athleticism that was so high that he was able to overcome that. But then eventually defenses caught up to him. And unfortunately, I didn't think we had an offensive coordinator in place that could really cater to his strengths in the way that they kind of groomed. You look at the game Russell Wilson had tonight, and you see how far he's evolved from where he was in 2012 and 2013, and they really catered to his strengths for a long time and still do, and that allowed him to progress at a rate where he slowly evolved and worked on the things that he was lacking in those initial years. He was lacking a lot of similar things to Cap at that time, but that we didn't really do that with Cap. We kind of forced him to be something else. Now, here in 2017 with Jimmy Garoppolo, it's like a perfect storm. He has the IQ, he has the athleticism, he has the experience, and now he has a coach that can hone it and take it to the next level. And like I said, it's a wonderful marriage between the two. It's a perfect storm right now. This combination, we haven't had this. We haven't had this in a long, long time. And all I'm hoping, my hope as a 49er faithful, I just hope that we can find protection for him. He can stay healthy, and that next year we can come in and build off of what I hope to be a better ending than a beginning to this season. I'm not going to say that we're going to win on the rest of our games. We might only win 1 or 2 more games. I think we're going to win maybe 2 more games. But having said that, there's just a lot of potential there, and it's a perfect storm. Like everything kind of fell into place for Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo to now be on the same team. And it's just special. It felt special today. That felt really different. And like you said, it's really hard not to get excited. And I'm going to be the first on the GoldCast. We're not sitting here saying, hey, they're going to go, undefeated. We're going to win the rest of our games. We're quest for 6. I'm not saying any of that. We are at the rebuilding phase. You've got to keep the humility and the reality of what the rebuilding phase means for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not going to name names. We had people texting us by halftime. Oh man, I'm kind of disappointed where this game is going. We're like, it's only halftime. The defense only allowed 1 touchdown. Special teams really screwed up on that punt. But outside of that, this team's been playing real strong. So the potential's there. It's really exciting. I don't know about you. I watched football for most of these games. I'm just so bummed. Half the time I'm barely paying attention to football, and I just turn it off. Or I won't even watch the rest of the day. I'll check in. I'll see the highlights. I'll do some red zone. But when the Niners lose and it's a really crappy game, I'm just not nearly as motivated to watch the rest of football. But then it was so good, I just sat and just enjoyed the NFL for the rest of the day. And I was like, oh my God, I remember this is what it felt like during the Harbaugh years. We have a great game. It's a good, solid win. I can just sit and just kind of bask in the glory and just watch where all the other teams are and kind of think about what it's going to be if we have to face them in the playoffs and yada, yada, yada. And we're not there today. But it was that kind of feeling where I was like, man, I'm just able to relax and enjoy football and not kind of feel the weight and the pain of another loss by the 49ers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So, and I think they got a legitimate shot to win next week. I think they truly do because some of our guys are healthy. Solomon Thomas was back into the lineup this week. Kella Witherspoon was there. I know we have a couple of rookies in the secondary, but we also have Eric Reed, the veteran, who had a good game today. Reuben Foster continues to be a tackling machine. He's not lighting up the sacks and interceptions and forced fumble, but goddamn, he just flies all over the place and just continues to lead the team in tackles, every single game. He's
good.
Averaging almost 10 a game. So he had 7 today, but that was 3 more than any other player on the defense. So this guy is just going to get better, and his health has seemed to finally stabilize, which is great because he was pretty rocky coming out this year, but he's seemed to finally stabilize himself. So I'm just curious to see what happens in Houston, because that's going to be going from, the Chicago Bears are the worst passing offense in the NFL with Mitchell Trubisky, and now they're going up against Deshaun Watson, who's a much more capable passer, and as a result,
Deshaun Watson's out. Remember? No, Mary Torres.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. It's Tom Savage, then, is it right?
Yeah. Pretty sure it's Tom Savage.
Yeah. So this is a team that statistically is hovering right around the same, stat as we are. In fact, Niners are 17th in the league. The Texans are the 16th. So they're going to be facing a passing attack that's about as capable as we are. Only I would trust Jimmy G over Tom Savage any day. So as long as, but if you give Tom Savage protection, like any quarterback, they're going to do well. So it's really going to be up to the secondary to kind of hold down that coverage, and also for the pass rushers to get some sacks, for God's sake. So Thomas, and I know Dumerville does really good on third downs, but we need more than just, third down rush specialists. We need some guys to get first and second down sacks. So really hold that. I'm not afraid of Houston's rushing attack. They are a top 10 rushing team, so they're obviously going to depend on their rushing game to really set up their pass and drive their offense. So if we can do what we did to Chicago, then, it'll be a long day for Tom Savage, which I think will boast in our favor. But defensively, this is a team that is not as defensively sound as Chicago, believe it or not. They are against the run, so I do expect them to kind of do the same thing that Chicago did to Hyde. I expect those same results to probably happen next week, but I could be wrong. Who knows? Breda and Hyde could have better games, and they could do even better than what they did against Chicago. But this is a top 10 rushing defense. But on the passing side, this is the 22nd ranked defense in the NFL, which is several positions. So the passing attack for Chicago is like 15, so middle of the road. This is below average now. We're getting into the 22nd thing. So that means that if they take away our running game and force Jimmy G to beat us with his arm, that means that theoretically he should be able to carve these guys up. So it'll be another opportunity for what I expect is that against a subpar defense, especially in the secondary, I expect a player like Jimmy Garoppolo to shine really well, because that's what he's shown us so far.
Boom. So, Raymond, here's the question. Vegas odds, what do you think is the spread? What is it? Who's the favorite and by how many? But don't give me a range. I want an exact number. What do you think it is? What's the spread going to be? What is it?
7 points.
So, Niners or Texans?
Texans.
Ooh, no. Vegas doesn't trust Houston at all. They give them the lead. They say Texans by 1.5. Now, here's the question. Do you take that bet?
No, you do not. I think the Niners win again, and I think Jimmy G puts on a performance. Only this time he gets into the end zone at least 2 times.
So what do you think? What do you say? Niners by how many?
I say Niners by a touchdown.
Boom. Niners by 7. Vegas says Houston by 1.5. Raymond says Niners by 7. San Francisco. Here we go. Congratulations, Jimmy G. You did fantastic. You get the game ball. Special teams, you kind of punched us in the balls. Not cool. Let's not do that again this next game. Raymond,
I think they'll be all right. We are the best. We are the best special teams coverage team in the NFL. So I'll let that mistake go and expect them to step up next week. That was the wake up call. Maybe they got a little complacent and faced somebody that was a little bit more dynamic than who they faced previously this season. And so that was the wake-up call. But now they're going to go back to being the top coverage team in the NFL next week.
There you go. I like the optimism, Ray. Sounds very faithful. Now, Ray, before we finish, why don't you let them know where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ray Solis. I'm also on Instagram at Ray Solis1.
Boom. You can find me on Instagram, Rudy Solis 3. You can find me on Twitter, Rudy Solis 3RD, Rudy Solis 3rd. So concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the faithful. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the First, baby.
Boom. We'll see you next week. Game 2. Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy G. Here we go. We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time. Same GoldCast channel.
This is the GoldCast.